Good morning and welcome to another Undaunted Man podcast. Um, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jeff.
This morning we're going to talk about how to handle conflicting priorities. Because, this is true. It's true that everybody deals with conflicting priorities, but men and masculine oriented people handle it differently than women and feminine oriented people. Not better, just differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we are most effective in our lives when we handle these conflicting priorities in alignment with who we are. So, as an example, this morning, one of my clients had some work equipment stolen that interferes with their ability to obviously get work done in the short term, but it interferes with a pretty large project. So, I spent the morning prior to recording this podcast, at least part of it, working to solve that problem, to help solve that problem. How are we going to continue so we can get the project taken care of, plus being under the gun to get this recorded, plus my regular work and family responsibilities all happening at the same time. So I know how I handled it, and I think I handled it well. What do you think, Jeff, when you get yourself stuck in a time when you've got conflicting, equally urgent, equally important priorities? What do you do? How do you decide?
Well, the first thing that I typically do is to breathe. Breath is so valuable, and it makes me think of a Joe Dispenza quote that I heard last night Terry Real quote: urgency is often not your friend, and breath is. And it was in the context of how do you deal with conflict in relationship, but with priorities, work, personal life, family. First thing I do is I kind of have my own inner triage system. Like I'll write them down, because if I have more than two and I'm trying to keep it all in my mind, I find it more challenging to, really be able to separate them out. And then the next thing I do is look at what's real urgency and priority versus what my mind or my ego wants me to believe is most important. So then the next step is, if it's a conflict between work and quote unquote personal life, if no one's going to die, if the personal stuff can wait, I'm almost always going to choose the work-related stuff, because people pay me for what I do. So I have an obligation to serve them as best I can. So, and when there's two conflicts between two clients, for example, or guys in one of my groups, whatever, I go into my gut and I drop in, and what's my intuition saying has to come first. And then I'll do a quick text to the other person, and I just let them know, I know, I got you on my radar, and I'll get back to you within X number of hours. Then I'm going to go take care of what my gut has, told me I need to focus on first. Then I go back to the other one. Then I'm likely to go back to whatever the personal priority may be. And in between taking a leak between conflicting priorities, I might text my wife or whoever, my son, can't deal right now, gotta wait.
Mm-hmm.
So I just try to keep the communication loop.
Mm-hmm.
And that, when I was younger, like maybe a year ago,
Whew.
yeah.
Thank God you've grown up since then.
It would be easy, particularly if I was trying to keep it all in my mind, in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be easy to drop that part out about letting. I did this all the time in my corporate life because my job was nothing but conflicting priorities. And I'd work it out up here, and then I'd start executing, but I wouldn't remember to communicate with people to let them, to adjust their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing is, I let my mind do it, and then I just stop and I breathe. All right, I ask spirit, which thing do I do here? And it rarely goes badly anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's great. Appreciate that. For me, it's uh, depending on how critical the crises are. Um, my old part of my old baggage, it's my old Mr. Nice Guy people pleaser baggage. So my first thought is, okay, how am I going to take care of everybody?
Right.
Um, and part of that is um, Mr. Nice Guy stuff, and part of it is an expression of healthy masculinity. I have a lot of people that I am responsible for,
Yep.
and a lot of people I'm responsible to. So then it becomes, how do I meet those obligations? Um, how do I live up to my own standards of care, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
phraseology coming to me in this moment? Um, and to the degree that it's possible, how do I keep everybody happy,
Right.
or as happy as can be given the circumstances of what's going on? So, like you, the first thing I do is I take a deep breath. I mean, I don't go sit in the corner in a lotus position, but I take a deep breath. And then for me, it's also a turning inward and just listen to that inner voice, that inner knowing, and that inner knowing always tells me the right action, and then I follow that.
Yep.
Because there's objectively, depending on who you are, where you are in the constellation of my responsibilities, everybody thinks their needs are the most important, or everybody feels like their needs are urgent. Everybody feels like their needs need to be met first.
Yep.
And that simply is impossible to do. So how do you triage? You listen to that inner voice and allow that inner voice to guide you, and know that whatever happens, it's going to be okay. It's always okay. It's never not okay. Things
Right.
always work out the way they need to. They always work out the way they're supposed to. And I know now from long experience of doing this that I have everything I need to handle whatever is coming up.
Yeah.
And I'll be fine. The people I'm taking care of are going to be fine. The people I'm responsible to are going to be fine. It's all going to be fine.
Well,
So,
sorry, finish.
um, I just want to say that the last thing that is and the most important thing is not to fall into your emotions.
Yeah.
That's the worst conceivable thing that you can do. Um, because any emotional reactivity that comes up to that, or whatever is going on, is not going to help solve the problem. Whatever the problem is, no one, including me, benefits from having my emotions running amok because of what's going on in the world, or what's going on with me, what's going on in my sphere of influence. Nobody benefits. And as a matter of fact, typically everyone suffers if I get emotional. So I don't.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's important to distinguish, well, a couple things I want to add to what you just shared. When you get that inner read, for me, typically, for a long time, the cutting edge was trusting it.
Mm.
So and when you're emotional, you don't know what to trust because your emotions, have literally hijacked your brain. And
That is a fantastic point. That's absolutely correct.
yeah,
I, yeah. I will frequently say, and I say this usually when I'm trying to make a point and like snap somebody out of it, but emotions make us stupid.
yep, yep. And they're almost always oriented to a past that doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
Um,
Or a future
that doesn't.
story, or a story that we've made up about the future
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist yet and probably won't.
Right, right. So you've got to trust that inner voice telling you. And another thing that has come up for me in the past has been that if there are people that get upset about the choices I may have made, oh, well, you chose that priority over my priority. I also trust through years and years of experience, I can clean it up. If I made a bad call, well, then it's great practice for me to keep getting beyond my nice guy tendencies to just go, all right, there's probably going to be an upset in here. And I have enough relationship and relatedness with all my clients, all my guys in our groups, in my personal life. I can explain why I made the call and give them room to, vent whatever they need to vent. And I'm not going to take it on because it's great practice for my inner nice guy to, okay, I got it. They got upset, but I don't have any regrets about the call I made. And then I get to trust your last point, which is it's all going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And being responsible to people, here's a whole nother podcast episode, being responsible to people and for people, where I used to really mess myself up a lot, was adding into that, I'm responsible for how they feel. And I'm responsible for where their ego goes around whatever. Their reactivity, oh, that's my fault. And what I've learned, thank you God, is no, we're not responsible for anyone else's feelings. I mean, it's not like that gives you carte blanche to walk up to somebody and say, hey, good morning, go fuck yourself. That's not okay. But even if I were that kind of person, the reality is if somebody did that to me and I get my panties in a twist around it, well, that's my stuff. And that's me being set up to be stupid by letting my emotions, particularly emotional reactivity, take over. And Mark and I are not at all saying that no human being should have emotions. We all have them and they all have a purpose. But man, when you try and solve a problem in the midst of an emotion, even the ones that would get labeled good, like love or joy or all that. Well, if my house is on fire and I'm thinking about, how much I love my grandson, that's not the appropriate time to be focusing on how much I love my grandson. So even the nice emotions still need to be put behind what is this moment calling for.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it reminds me of being in California about 20 years ago. And I was co-leading a workshop in the Bay Area. And on the opening day of the workshop, I got a call from my wife that our son was in the hospital. And it was an emergency. And I had 20 guys that were counting on me and my partner at that time to deliver a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a moment. I mean, obviously, as a father, my emotional side is, holy shit, my son's in trouble. And I knew I had to go and get on a flight and get home. And I had these guys. So I did, I went in, I got quiet for a moment, and it was a no-brainer to go home, and it was a no-brainer to go back into the course room after taking the call and letting my wife know I'll find the flight, I'll get home. And I just told the group the truth. This is an emergency. And, because I knew my partner was totally capable of delivering the workshop without me. And I remember walking from the course room to the room that I was staying in at the retreat center and praying first, like dropping out of the mental tizzy, walking, and the whole time I was walking, praying for my son to be okay, asking Spirit, please keep him alive, please let's have this work out. And then I dropped into the zone, like thinking from intellect, thinking from no emotion at all. Here's what has to happen. And I was cool as a cucumber for the ensuing few hours that it took to get to the airport, get on a flight, get home, and deal. And even when I got home, my first thing was what I'm feeling right now doesn't matter. What my wife is going through as a mother, and I wasn't ignoring that I have shit going on as a dad, but it was like, I gotta help get my wife stabilized, and then I'll deal with my emotions later.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a real world example of, horrible things that could trigger all kinds of emotions, but having to re-regulate yourself, compartmentalize them, and then
Mm-hmm.
come back and deal with them. So
Right.
there's a real world example too.
Beautifully said. And you're right. Maybe our next episode needs to be about how we are all responsible for our own emotions. And a major, what's the word I want to say? Contributing factor to a lot of the problems that we have in our society these days is the idea that other people are responsible for our emotions.
Right. And I'm kind of
Next
guessing
time.
that might come up in romantic relationships too.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay, so that's a little preview for what we're going to do next time. And one of the consequences of the little crisis that I had this morning is that this episode is slightly abbreviated. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And Jeff, you've got the killer closes. You're like the king of the closes.
Yeah, well, if we keep kind of stimulating your mind and your inner higher self with all the stuff we share, even if that's like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Well, then we invite you to hit the subscribe button below this video. And if you're seeing a part of it on Instagram or LinkedIn, go ahead and join our feed. But there's so much more that we've got coming. So please stay tuned.